Right here on ET Now, it doesn't get bigger than this in Punjab National Bank, which has been under the scanner for this mega fraud. And your channel has access now to the CBI FIR against PNB. My colleague Vijay Ganeshan Iyer is waiting by with exclusive details on what this FIR has to say. Vijay, over to you. Okay, we will be back with Vijay in just a bit, but we're the only channel who has access to the CBI FIR on PNB. Remember, just yesterday, PNB has told other banks as well about this fraud case and said that the fraud was carried out in collusion with the staff at one of their branches in Mumbai. And now, as we understand, my colleague Vijay Iyer has got exclusive details on the CBI FIR against PNB. Vijay, what are the details like?
Aisha, a very good morning to you and all our viewers. As you're rightly pointing out, ET Now has managed to get access to the FIR copy lodged by the Mumbai of CBI. Now, clearly, this FIR copy has three main aspects. One, clearly it says that the charges include criminal conspiracy, cheating and abuse of official position by public servants, which indicates that clearly there is connivance at the branch level of certain individuals. We know that already close to 10 officials of Punjab National Bank have been suspended. The important aspect of this FIR is that the letter of undertaking was issued between 9 February 2017 and 14 February 2017. Now, clearly, the whole connivance came to light when on 25th of January, the letter of undertakings were due for payment. That is where Punjab National Bank raised alarm, saying these were the letter of undertakings which were indeed issued by some individuals conniving with the export houses. The bank now says that these letter of undertakings were illegal in nature, and that is where on 25th of January 2018, when the first LOU was due for payment, this whole scam came to light. Now, having said that, three important names, the export houses, which include Stellar Diamond Solar Exports and Diamond R US, all these companies, we see that Nirav Modi and his family members, including Mehul Chokshi of Gitanjali, are seen to be sitting on the board in one way or other of all these three export houses. Now, having said that, Allahabad Bank and Axis Bank has got highest exposure when it comes to the LOUs, because these banks are financed using these LOUs of Punjab National Bank from their Hong Kong branch. Now, the other important aspect which we should highlight is that the highest exposure of the letter of undertakings issued to Stellar Diamond stood at 60,000 93321 US dollars. The same of Solar Export stood at 5,86,251. So clearly now we understand why this 10,000 crore amount has been put by Punjab National Bank. If you see the cumulative exposure that PNB has with this LOUs with other banks also financing, is 10,000 crores, although the maturity or this payment of LOUs will be due at various point of times. Now with January 25th, the first LOU was due. So clearly this FIR primarily is now looking at that 258 crore, which was primarily due and defaulted. So in the coming days and weeks, we could see more such LOUs getting defaulted, and that is where Punjab National Bank has raised certain issues. And importantly, as I should also add, late night yesterday at ET Now put out, Enforcement Directorate has also got into the action, has filed its ECIR on this whole case, and we all know these diamond traders have been under the radar.
Follow-up question, you mentioned that there were LOUs. Vijay, is my voice reaching you?
Yeah, please go
Vijay,
ahead.
Whereas, it's a great story, Break, that CBI has filed a FIR against PNB officials, but your story also mentions the name of Allahabad Bank and Axis Bank. I want to clear the air. We don't want to spread any panic that the name of Axis Bank and Allahabad Bank is also involved in it. But the fact that there is an involvement of the Hong Kong branch, what does this indicate?
Nikunj, that's a very interesting question. We need to understand the whole banking systems or the various instruments that banks use to give when it comes to these export and import houses. So clearly what happens is that, say, a Punjab National Bank issues this letter of undertaking for an importer from its branch here, and subsequently this is used by the importer back in an international branch, and that is where Allahabad Bank and Axis Bank's foreign branches based out of Hong Kong indeed give a certain loan based on these LOUs. These LOUs in, say, common parlance are like bank guarantees, and that is where these banks are now claiming that their loans are due against these LOUs and PNB should make the payment. So clearly, this is going to be a legal dispute because certain banks have an exposure against these LOUs issued by PNB. But at the same time, PNB now is saying these LOUs are illegal in nature and these instruments were not issued by PNB, and certain officials or individuals connived at the Mumbai branch. So clearly, RBI will also have a role to play, but clearly the names of other banks, there is an exposure and it will be a hit on them unless PNB makes the payment, Nikunj.
Okay. So just to clear the air, Vijay here, CBI will now be investigating. The case has now moved to the Central Bureau of Investigation, and the trail seems to be indicating that Axis Bank and Allahabad Bank, they were only involved in financing operations, because when it comes to a large LC or a large letter of intent, PNB would have not done it alone. But the fact that, Vijay, Allahabad Bank and Axis Bank overlooked what was in fake transaction is also very scary to me.
Nikunj, that's the precise point. Now, if you see, this will we'll have to look at it as a systemic failure. The banks at the end of the day, once again, it raises the basic question, aren't they doing their due diligence when they are giving so much of exposed or giving loans against various instruments issued by banks? Now, this has been going on for years. Now, all of a sudden, when an LOU was due on January 25th of 2018, how all of a sudden PNB realized that they have not issued, and there is an issue in addressing or making the payment of that LOU. So clearly this indeed is a systemic issue which will have to be dealt with, this, because enforcement agencies at various points have been pointing to the banks of the modus operandi used particularly by this diamond community when it comes to imports and exports. So once again, this is an alarming situation, and banks and perhaps RBI as a regulator of banking will have to chip in to ensure that these sort of systemic issues are addressed, because at the end of the day, it's the bank's balance sheet which is getting exposed, and we all know in terms of market capitalization also, on the other hand, how the notional losses have happened now. So clearly this will raise a lot of tough questions which banks will have to address. At the same time, RBI as a regulator will have to address to ensure that these systemic loopholes are plugged in.
Absolutely, Vijay, because people's hard-earned money is parked as deposits in these banks, and the first thing that comes to their mind is what's going to happen post this fraud in terms of the safety of their deposits. So banks are definitely accountable, and like you pointed out, this is not so much about what the diamond community does, or the jewelry sector really does. This is about putting the checks and balances in place by the key banks that have been involved. Amit Tanan joins in with a quick review of this story. And Amit, in addition to the fact that there could be Axis Bank and Allahabad Bank, their Hong Kong branch involved with the letter of understanding. The other interesting aspect is that these LOUs were actually issued exactly a year back. I mean, exactly a year back, the government was coming heavy on the banking sector to clean up their balance sheet. I think they were going through a series of asset quality reviews. So while they were cleaning up their bad loans, they were still not, improving their process of lending, and there were still loopholes there. That is what stands out to me in this story, that, this has happened just about a year back, while, the banks were still trying to get their act together. They were quite doing the other thing when it came to the lending activity.
You're absolutely right. But let me first just give you some headline numbers. There was a review which was done recently by some professors at IIM Bangalore, and they found that somewhere between 2013 or 2012 and 2015, the total amount of frauds which were identified by the Indian banking system were about 22,750 odd crores. So if you look at it in that context, this is a fairly large number. And I kind of put that in context of what you said, that look, the RBI and the ministry was kind of coming down on the banks to say that, look, you need to strengthen your processes. But in this case, all I'd say is that, you had a set of people who seem to have bypassed the bank systems. So they kind of issued a SWIFT order. SWIFT orders, SWIFT transactions need to be honored, which is a kind of closed door way of communicating, or a secure way of communicating between banks. It kind of comes with its own password, and therefore if an order comes through SWIFT, it means that it's kind of gone through the internal systems and it needs to be kind of honored. What you need to remember is that if someone is deliberately kind of from the inside, who's aware of what the processes are, who's aware of what the systems are, who's aware of what the checks and balances are, has kind of breached the entire protocol and ensured that money goes out of the system. You also need to remember, there are certain checks and balances which take place. That look, any communication which is going on the SWIFT platform, it actually automatically goes to the head office. It's automatically recorded in the bank's core banking system. In this case, that was not happening. So I think this is deliberate. So while you could say that there are, and we do talk about checks and balances and so on and so forth, when someone from the inside is deliberately breaching the protocol, deliberately breaking all the guidelines, and knowing how the system works, I think you need to look at it slightly differently and say that, look, it may not be systemic. It does point to the fact that there were lacuna in the system which need to be now plugged. I would kind of, at this stage, based on the information, I would leave it at that and not say that there are a large number of people or a large number of banks who have kind of all jointly gone ahead and been active participants in what has occurred. Having said so, all I'm saying is based on the information which is available to us, I'd be reluctant to paint everyone with the same brush stroke at this stage.
Yeah, just everyone else is also very prompt in washing their hands off from PNB, because we just have an official clarification come by from Axis Bank saying that they've undertaken transactions against PNB's LOUs in the past. And they're saying that there were forex deals which were authenticated by PNB, and this is clearly mentioning the transactions via the Hong Kong branch, and they're saying that the forex deals were against PNB's SWIFT authentication, and I think they are mentioning further on that they have sold all transactions referred to PNB's credit deals. So they've clearly made their stand very clear, and you're seeing quite a relief actually come by on Axis Bank as well on that account. But Amit, the point is that this is all being put on a certain deputy official in one of the bank branches at PNB, a deputy manager. The point is that such a large transaction couldn't have gone missed in the entire system, and the point that you're also highlighting, I guess that this situation would get escalated further. It can't be a one-point, army really just executing such a large transaction on the behest of a particular client. There have to be more people involved in this, and a lot of people are now pointing fingers saying that the then top management couldn't have been unaware of such a large transaction happening, right under their nose in electronic times like today's.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I would expect that in any risk management system or any robust risk management system, you would have, looking at the exposure, it would kind of get approved from different levels. So you could, just for the purposes of this conversation, you could say that it's 100 crores for at the DGM level. If it's from 100 to 500 crores, then the general manager approves it. If it's 500 to 1,000 crores, then the chief general manager approves it. If it is more than that, then it needs the chairman or one of the executive directors' approval. So there is a level of protocol which is built in now. Again, how the system was breached, why is it that, all these limits were there and they were consistently breached? Was it one LC or one transaction, one SWIFT order which went through, or was it that, they were all of small amount aggregating a fairly large amount. These things are, at this moment at least, I've not got any sense of how this whole thing happened. But, the central point which you raised, that look, it's a fairly large amount. There should be checks and balances within the bank itself to ensure what a client level exposure is. And at 11,000 crores, you would expect that it's more than a DGM who's looking at what is happening. It's pretty much, I would expect that.
Okay, Amit, we got to leave it there. And Aisha, Tanveer, what amazes me is that today, if anybody misses on their home loan EMI or a simple credit card transaction, you get a call from the issuing company in less than 48 hours. They harass you, they chase you, but more importantly, they track you. We have CBIL here, which audits retail account, which has been done beautifully. But when it comes to the corporate accounts, we don't have a mechanism, we don't have a system, we don't have the best practices which have been followed. Time and again, I hear stories where a loan has been refused by private banks. It goes to PSU bank. The promoter is able to get its way through. So it's high time there has to be a system in which, just like you have KYC, CBIL, other lending norms in the retail space, in the credit card, space, something happens in the something happens in the corporate loan market. I'm surprised why nobody's considering that, why nobody's thinking on those lines. But this is what PNB has done. They clearly have not conducted themselves very well. I don't want to create the panic and say, okay, Yes Bank and Allahabad Bank were involved. No, they are not. There is a way in which how banks operate. Axis Bank clarification has also come out. But I think this is an evolving story. This is a case of fraud. And I hope that the guilties are caught and the right course of law really takes over.